Chapter 1. Why Speaking Smart Matters More Than Ever. Walk with me into a simple scene. You step into a room full of people you don't know. Maybe it's a meeting. Maybe it's an interview. Maybe it's a networking event where everyone looks confident and you're trying not to overthink your own breathing. Before you even sit down, before you prove anything, your voice does something powerful. It introduces you. And here's the part most people don't like hearing, but it's true. People start forming opinions fast. Not after they get to know you, not after they see your work. Fast. The first few seconds of how you speak can signal confidence, uncertainty, clarity, or confusion. It's not fair, but it's real. And once that first impression lands, it's hard to erase. That's why this chapter matters. Because speaking smart isn't about sounding fancy, and it's definitely not about acting like someone you're not. It's about making sure the real you comes across clearly. And yes, people judge based on voice. They judge your calm. They judge your tone. They judge your presence. They judge if you sound like you know what you're saying. And when you understand that, you stop treating communication like a soft skill and start treating it like a life skill. First impressions and voice-based judgment. Science of perception, clarity, tone, structure. Speaking smart versus sounding intellectual. Now let's talk about why the brain reacts this way without making it complicated. When someone speaks in a clear and organized way, the listener's brain relaxes. It feels safe. It feels like, okay, I can follow this. But when someone rambles, jumps around, or fills every gap with nervous words, the brain works harder to keep up, and people lose attention, even if your ideas are good. That's why clarity is magnetic. It's not because you're using big words. It's because your message has shape. It has direction. It has a beginning and an end. And your tone matters more than most people realize. You can say a smart sentence in a weak tone and it lands like a soft paper ball. Or you can say a simple sentence with calm confidence and it hits like truth. That's the difference between sounding intellectual and speaking smart. Sounding intellectual is performance. Speaking smart is connection. Speaking smart means people understand you the first time. They trust your delivery. They feel your presence. You don't need to win a vocabulary competition. You need to be understood. And the strongest communicators in history knew this. They didn't just talk, they guided attention. They used pauses. They told stories. They spoke with intention. That's why their words traveled further than the room they were standing in. Examples of influential speakers: modern world, noise, fast judgment, short attention. And in today's world, this skill matters more than ever because everything is louder, faster, and more distracted. People scroll. People swipe. People half listen while doing 3 other things. Attention spans are shorter, patience is thinner, and decisions happen quickly. That means the person who speaks with calm clarity stands out instantly, not by shouting, but by being sharp, by being structured, by being real. Think about it. 2 people can have the same intelligence, the same talent, the same experience, but the one who communicates well gets more opportunities because people feel confident choosing them. That's not luck. That's communication. In a job interview, speaking smart can be the difference between seems unsure and seems capable. In relationships, it can be the difference between being misunderstood and being respected. In meetings, it can be the difference between your idea getting ignored or getting repeated by someone else who said it with more confidence. And here's the good news. You don't need a perfect accent. You don't need to be extroverted. You don't need to become a different person. You just need to train the skill. Because when you learn to speak smart, you don't just change how people hear you. You change how they respond to you. Speaking smart as a career and life advantage. Chapter 2. The Science of Sounding Intelligent. When people hear the word intelligent, they often imagine complex vocabulary, fast thinking, or someone who sounds highly educated. But the brain doesn't work that way. Your brain is not impressed by complexity. It is comforted by clarity. Neuroscience shows that when we listen to someone speak, our brain is constantly asking one question in the background. Can I follow this easily? If the answer is yes, we feel calm, engaged, and trusting. If the answer is no, we feel restless and distracted, even if we can't explain why. This is where rhythm, tone, and pauses come in. The brain responds strongly to rhythm because rhythm creates predictability. When speech has a natural flow, with sentences that rise and fall instead of running non-stop, the listener stays mentally present. Tone guides emotion. A steady, grounded tone tells the brain there is no threat here, no chaos, no confusion. Pauses give the brain time to process and absorb meaning. Without pauses, information piles up too quickly and the listener checks out. This is why speaking smart is less about what you say and more about how the brain experiences what you say. Brain responds to rhythm, tone, pauses. Why clarity beats complexity. One of the biggest myths in communication is that sounding intelligent means sounding complex. In reality, complexity often creates distance. When you overload your speech with long explanations, technical jargon, or unnecessary detail, the brain has to work harder to decode your message. And when the brain works too hard, it disengages. Clarity always beats complexity because clarity reduces mental effort. Studies from universities like Harvard and California have shown that people perceive speakers as more intelligent and trustworthy when their language is simple, well-paced, and structured. This doesn't mean dumbing things down. It means sharpening your message. It means choosing words that do the work instead of decorating them. Pace plays a huge role here. Speaking too fast signals nervousness or urgency. Speaking too slow can feel unnatural, but speaking just slightly slower than average creates authority. Silence is part of that authority. Silence tells the listener that you are in control of the conversation, not rushing to fill space. Emphasis also guides attention. When you slightly stress key words, you tell the brain, this matters. That's vocal control. And it's one of the clearest signals of intelligence the brain recognizes, even if the listener never consciously notices it. Pace, silence, emphasis, vocal control. Harvard Neuroscience Insights explained simply, now let's talk about the power of the pause, because this is where most people feel uncomfortable. Silence feels risky. Many people rush to fill it with extra words, filler sounds, or explanations they don't need. But the brain reads silence differently. A well-placed pause signals confidence. It gives weight to the sentence that came before it. It allows emotion to land. Think about the emotional impact of tone and cadence. You can say the same sentence in 10 different ways and create 10 different emotional reactions. A calm tone lowers tension. A warm tone builds trust. A deliberate cadence makes the listener feel guided instead of rushed. This is why great speakers feel easy to listen to. Not because they are flashy, but because their speech respects the listener's mind. Smart speakers don't dump information, they deliver it. They understand that sounding intelligent is not about impressing the brain, but about working with it. When your rhythm is steady, your tone is intentional, and your pauses are deliberate, the brain rewards you with attention, trust, and credibility. And that's the real science behind sounding intelligent, not complexity, but control. Power of pauses and deliberate speech. Emotional impact of tone and cadence. Chapter 3. Vocabulary without complexity. Most people grow up believing that sounding smart means using big words, technical phrases, or language that feels slightly out of reach. Somewhere along the way, intelligence got confused with complication. But here's the truth that great communicators understand. The smartest speakers are not trying to sound smart. They are trying to be understood. And there is a huge difference. When you use words that force people to mentally pause and decode your sentence, you lose momentum. The listener's attention shifts from your idea to the effort of understanding it. That's not intelligence. That's friction. Real intelligence shows up in how clearly you can translate thoughts into language that lands immediately. This is why some of the most powerful speakers in the world use simple human words. They don't hide behind language. They use it as a bridge. Clarity beats complexity every single time because clarity respects the listener. It says, I value your attention, so I will not waste it. Vocabulary without complexity means choosing words that carry meaning, not ego. It means saying exactly what you mean without adding unnecessary layers. You don't need 10 words when 5 will do. You don't need fancy terms when a clean phrase explains it better. Smart speakers trim the fat. They remove fluff. They don't decorate their sentences just to sound impressive. They aim for impact, not applause. And when people understand you instantly, they don't think you're simple. They think you're sharp. Vocabulary without complexity. Think about how your brain reacts when someone explains something clearly. There's relief, there's comfort, there's a feeling of, I get this. That feeling is powerful. Studies in psychology show that when people understand something easily, they also feel more positive toward the person explaining it. In other words, clarity doesn't just make you sound smart, it makes you likable and trustworthy. This is why simple language is not a weakness, it's a strategic advantage. Smart vocabulary is precise, not complicated. Precision means choosing the exact word that captures your idea without over-explaining it. For example, instead of saying, he made the decision to move forward with the project, a smart speaker says, he decided to move forward. Fewer words, same meaning, stronger delivery. Filler words quietly weaken vocabulary too. Words like just, kind of, basically, or you know, soften your message and make it sound uncertain. Removing them instantly sharpens your speech. Silence is stronger than clutter. If you don't know the next word yet, pause. The pause sounds intentional. The filler sounds nervous. Another part of smart vocabulary is learning words that are useful, not flashy. Words like clarity, purpose, insight, strategy, alignment, growth. These words are powerful because they are familiar and meaningful. They don't distract. They focus. Vocabulary without complexity is about choosing words that serve your message instead of showing off your knowledge. And people feel that difference immediately. Vocabulary without complexity. Here's a simple test you can use every time you speak. Ask yourself, does this word help my message or hide it? If it hides it, remove it. If it helps it, keep it. You are not in a competition to sound impressive. You are in a conversation to be understood. The smartest communicators constantly adjust their language based on who they are speaking to. They don't lower their intelligence, they raise their clarity. A scientist explaining an idea to a child doesn't lose intelligence by simplifying. They demonstrate mastery. Because true understanding shows up in your ability to translate complexity into simplicity. That's why some of the most memorable lines in history are also the simplest. They are easy to repeat, easy to remember, easy to feel. Vocabulary without complexity also makes you confident because you are no longer hiding behind words. You stand directly behind your ideas. You say what you mean, and you mean what you say. That kind of language feels honest. It feels grounded. It feels real. And when your words are clean and clear, people don't struggle to follow you. They lean in. They listen. They remember. That's what it means to sound smart without sounding fake. Not by adding more words, but by choosing better ones, fewer ones, and truer ones. Vocabulary without complexity. Chapter 4. Speak with structure. Words are powerful, but without structure they drift. And when words drift, the listener gets lost, even if the idea is strong. Think about the last time someone spoke for a long time and you walked away thinking, I don't actually know what they were trying to say. That wasn't because they lacked intelligence. It was because their message had no shape. The human brain craves order. It looks for a path. When you speak with structure, you give the listener that path. You guide them step by step instead of forcing them to guess where you're going. This is why structure instantly makes you sound smarter. Not louder, not more educated. Smarter. A structured message usually follows a simple rhythm. Setup, core idea, and close. You set the stage so people know what you're talking about. You deliver the main point so they know why it matters. And you close so they know what to remember. This pattern feels natural to the brain because it mirrors how we process stories, decisions, and meaning. Smart speakers rarely ramble because they know where they're going before they start. They don't speak to figure it out loud. They speak to deliver something clear. This is where signposting becomes powerful. Small phrases like, here's the key point. There are 3 reasons, or let me explain why this matters, act like road signs for the listener's mind. They reduce confusion. They increase trust. They signal confidence. And confidence grows when the listener feels guided instead of overwhelmed. This is why structure works everywhere, in meetings, interviews, presentations, even casual conversations. When your thoughts are organized, people relax. When people relax, they listen. Speak with structure. Another reason structure matters is because attention is fragile. In a world full of noise, notifications, and short attention spans, people don't have the patience to decode messy speech. Structure protects attention. One of the simplest and most effective tools smart speakers use is the rule of three. Our brains love patterns of three because they feel complete and easy to remember. 3 points feel intentional. They feel prepared. They feel intelligent. When you say, "There are 3 reasons this matters," people lean in because their brain knows the journey won't be endless. Storytelling also brings structure into speech without making it feel rigid. A short story with a beginning, a challenge, and a lesson instantly organizes information in a way the brain enjoys. Even in professional settings, stories make ideas stick because they give context and emotion. Structure doesn't limit your voice, it supports it. Think of it like a spine. Without it, your message collapses. With it, your message stands tall. And when you feel nervous, structure becomes your safety net. You don't need to remember every word. You just need to remember the path. Where do I start? What is the main idea? How do I close? That's it. That simple framework can transform how you sound and how you feel when you speak. Structured speech shows discipline. It shows respect for the listener's time. It shows that you've thought before you've spoken. And that combination makes people trust you, remember you, and take you seriously. Speak with structure. Chapter 5. Confidence is contagious. You have probably noticed this without ever putting it into words. Someone enters a room, speaks only a few sentences, and suddenly the energy shifts. People look up, they listen. Not because that person is louder, not because their words are complex, but because their voice carries certainty. Confidence travels through sound before logic ever arrives, and this is important to understand. Confidence is not about being fearless, and it is not about believing you are better than others. Confidence in speaking is about being grounded in what you are saying. It is about standing behind your words instead of apologizing for them. Many people wait to feel confident before they speak, but confident speakers know something different. They speak first, and confidence follows. Your body, your tone, your pace, all send signals to the listener's brain. When you speak slowly enough to be understood, when your voice doesn't rush or shrink, the listener feels safe placing trust in you. This is why confidence is contagious. When you sound sure, people feel sure listening to you. Even if they don't fully agree yet, they stay open. Confidence is not arrogance. Arrogance pushes people away. Confidence invites people in. Arrogance talks over others. Confidence holds space. And the most powerful part is this. You don't need to be perfect to sound confident. You only need to be present. When you remove filler words, when you allow pauses, when you stop explaining yourself before anyone questions you, your speech becomes steady. Steadiness reads as intelligence. Steadiness reads as leadership. Confidence is not loud energy. It is calm energy. And calm energy spreads. Confidence is contagious. What most people don't realize is that confidence can be practiced like a physical skill. Your posture shapes your voice. When you sit or stand upright, your breathing improves and your tone naturally becomes stronger. Your voice follows your body. If your body is tense or closed, your voice sounds uncertain. If your body is open and grounded, your voice carries weight. Tone matters just as much. Confident speakers don't lift their tone at the end of every sentence as if they are asking permission to be heard. They finish their thoughts. They let sentences land. They allow silence to exist without panic. Silence is not weakness. Silence is control. A pause after a statement tells the listener that you trust your words enough to let them stand alone. Filler words like just, or kind of sneak in when the mind feels rushed. Replacing them with a pause instantly raises your authority. And here's something powerful. Confidence grows faster through small wins than big performances. Speaking once in a meeting, asking one clear question, explaining one idea cleanly. Each moment builds evidence in your own mind that your voice works. Over time, that evidence becomes belief, and belief changes how you speak without you forcing it. Confidence becomes natural because you've trained it. When confidence meets clarity and structure, your voice no longer competes for attention. It commands it quietly, and people follow that kind of voice not because they are impressed, but because they trust it. Confidence is contagious. Chapter 6. Listening is speaking smart. There is a quiet truth most people never learn. The smartest speakers are rarely the ones who talk the most. They are the ones who listen the best. Real listening is not silence while waiting for your turn. It is active attention. It is choosing to understand before choosing to respond. When you truly listen, your replies become sharper, calmer, and more relevant. And relevance is one of the strongest signals of intelligence the human brain recognizes. People don't trust speakers who rush to speak. They trust speakers who respond thoughtfully. Listening gives you information most people miss. Tone shifts, emotional cues, what is being said and what is not being said. When someone feels heard, their guard lowers. When their guard lowers, connection forms. And connection is the foundation of influence. In conversations, meetings, interviews, and even arguments, listening changes the power dynamic. You are no longer reacting. You are responding. You are no longer guessing. You are grounded. That grounded response makes your words feel deliberate instead of defensive. Smart listening also slows you down in the best way. It creates natural pauses. It removes the pressure to fill silence. It gives your words weight because they are based on understanding, not assumption. When you listen well, your speech becomes targeted. You stop speaking in generalities and start speaking directly to the moment. And that precision is what makes people think, this person gets it. Listening is not passive. It is strategic. It allows you to choose the right words instead of saying the first words that come to mind. And when you choose instead of rush, your voice sounds intelligent without effort. Listening is speaking smart. In a world where everyone is trying to be heard, the person who listens instantly stands out. People are tired of being talked at. They are hungry to be understood. When you listen deeply, you create psychological safety. That safety invites honesty, and honesty creates real conversation instead of surface-level noise. Smart listeners don't interrupt to show intelligence. They ask questions to deepen clarity. They reflect what they hear by saying things like, "What I'm hearing is," or "It sounds like this matters to you because." These small signals show presence. They tell the other person, "I'm with you." And once that trust is built, your words carry more weight because they are welcomed instead of resisted. Listening also protects you in high-pressure situations. In conflict, most people speak fast and loud to defend themselves. Smart communicators listen first. They let emotions settle. They respond with calm clarity. That calm response often disarms tension faster than any argument ever could. In interviews, listening allows you to tailor your answers instead of delivering rehearsed lines. In leadership, listening builds loyalty because people follow those who hear them. In relationships, listening builds intimacy because it says, "You matter." Speaking smart is not about dominating conversations. It is about guiding them, and guidance begins with understanding. When you master listening, you stop chasing respect. You earn it naturally, because people don't remember how much you talked. They remember how you made them feel, and feeling heard is one of the most powerful experiences you can give another human being. Listening is speaking smart. Chapter 7. Avoiding filler words and weak language. Sometimes the reason a message feels weak has nothing to do with the idea itself. It has everything to do with the small, almost invisible words that quietly drain its power. Filler words slip into speech when the mind is rushing ahead of the voice. Words like, uh, like, you know, kind of, basically, or just may seem harmless, but over time, they shape how people perceive you. They signal hesitation even when you are confident inside. They suggest uncertainty even when your idea is strong. The listener's brain picks up on these signals instantly, not consciously, but emotionally. Weak language softens the impact of your message before it even lands. When you begin a sentence with, "I just wanted to say," or "This might sound silly, but," you are shrinking your presence before anyone has challenged you. You are apologizing for your voice. Smart speakers don't do that. They respect their ideas enough to let them stand without cushioning. This doesn't mean being aggressive or harsh. It means being clean and intentional. Silence is far more powerful than filler. A pause tells the listener you are thinking. A filler tells them you are nervous. And the difference between those two impressions can completely change how your message is received. Removing weak language does not make you robotic. It makes you precise. It allows your ideas to come through without noise. When your words are clean, your confidence feels real, not forced. Avoiding filler words and weak language is not about perfection. It is about awareness. Once you notice these habits, you can replace them with pauses, stronger sentence openings, and calmer delivery. And when you do, people don't just hear you more clearly, they take you more seriously, avoiding filler words and weak language. Strong speakers also understand that tone can either weaken or strengthen language. You can say a clear sentence, but if your voice trails off at the end, it sounds like a question instead of a statement. That upward tone signals doubt, even when the words themselves are confident. Ending sentences with a grounded, downward tone signals completion. It tells the listener, this thought is finished. I stand by it. That alone can transform how intelligent you sound. Another powerful shift is replacing weak openings with strong ones. Instead of saying, I think maybe we should, say, I recommend we. Instead of I'm not sure but, say, here's another perspective. These small changes create a big difference because they change how you frame yourself. You are no longer someone asking for permission to speak. You are someone contributing value. Recording yourself is one of the fastest ways to spot weak language patterns. When you hear yourself back, you'll notice habits you never realized you had. And once you notice them, you can correct them. Over time, your brain learns that silence is safe, that clarity is powerful, and that your voice does not need padding. The goal is not to eliminate every pause or sound. The goal is to make sure every word earns its place. When you remove filler and weak language, your speech tightens. Your ideas land faster. Your confidence becomes audible. And people stop listening to how you speak and start listening to what you say. That is when your communication shifts from average to intelligent, from noise to influence, from uncertain to unmistakable, avoiding filler words and weak language. Chapter 8. Authenticity, the smartest way to speak. You can master structure, control your tone, remove filler words, and speak with calm confidence. But if your words don't feel real, people sense it immediately. Authenticity is the invisible layer that makes smart communication believable. The human brain is incredibly sensitive to sincerity. It knows when someone is performing instead of expressing. That's why the smartest way to speak is not to imitate others, not to chase what sounds impressive, but to sound like yourself at your clearest and most grounded. Authentic speech comes from alignment. Your words, your tone, and your intention are all pointing in the same direction. When they don't align, people feel discomfort even if they can't explain why. Authenticity creates ease. It tells the listener, this person is not trying to sell me an image. They are sharing something real. And realness builds trust faster than perfection ever could. Many people hold back their true voice because they fear judgment. They think they need to sound more confident, more polished, more intelligent than they actually feel. So they put on a verbal mask. They over-explain. They use language that doesn't belong to them. But that mask drains energy. It creates tension, and tension leaks into the voice. Smart speakers do the opposite. They simplify. They speak from experience. They choose honesty over performance. They allow their natural pace, emotion, and personality to exist without apology. Authenticity does not mean oversharing or being unfiltered. It means being honest, intentional, and present. When you speak from who you are instead of who you think you should be, your words carry weight. People listen not because your sentences are perfect, but because they feel true, and truth has a sound. Authenticity, the smartest way to speak. Authentic speakers understand that intelligence is not about hiding uncertainty, it's about owning it wisely. Saying, I don't have all the answers, but here's what I've learned, often sounds smarter than pretending to know everything. Why? Because self-awareness is intelligence. People trust speakers who are secure enough to be honest. Authenticity also allows emotion to exist in your voice. Not uncontrolled emotion, but human emotion. Caring about what you're saying makes it matter. A voice that carries genuine concern, curiosity, or conviction is far more persuasive than a perfectly neutral delivery. This is why some voices stay with us long after the conversation ends. They didn't just inform us, they connected with us. Authentic communication also means respecting your own boundaries. You don't need to adopt someone else's speaking style to be effective. Some people are energetic, some are calm, some are soft-spoken, some are direct. Smart speaking is not about volume or personality type. It's about clarity, intention, and truth. When you stop forcing yourself to sound a certain way, your confidence stabilizes. You no longer waste energy performing. That energy goes into presence instead, and presence is magnetic. People feel it when you are fully there, speaking from a place of alignment. Authenticity makes your communication sustainable. You don't burn out trying to maintain an image. You don't second-guess every sentence. You speak, you listen, you adjust, and you stay real. And in a world full of noise, exaggerated confidence, and borrowed voices, the person who speaks with authenticity stands out quietly but powerfully. Not because they demand attention, but because their voice feels honest. And honesty is one of the smartest signals a human being can send. Authenticity, the smartest way to speak. Chapter 9. Speaking smart in high-stakes moments. The real test of smart communication does not happen when you are relaxed and comfortable. It happens when the stakes are high, when your heart is racing, your thoughts feel crowded, and every word seems like it matters more than usual. This is the interview that could change your career, the difficult conversation you have been avoiding, the presentation in front of people whose opinions feel heavy. In these moments, most people don't rise to their potential. They fall back on their habits, and this is why preparation and awareness matter so deeply. Speaking smart under pressure is not about eliminating fear. Fear is human. It is about learning how to carry that fear without letting it control your voice. When pressure hits, the brain shifts into survival mode. Speech speeds up. Breathing becomes shallow. Words spill out unstructured. This is why smart speakers rely on clarity and structure even more in high-stakes moments. They know what their core message is before they open their mouth. They know the one idea that must land, even if everything else falls away. This clarity acts like an anchor. It slows the mind. It steadies the voice. And when your voice steadies, the listener feels it. Calm speech signals control. Control signals competence. Competence builds trust. In stressful moments, how you speak matters more than how much you say. A short, clear response delivered calmly often sounds smarter than a long explanation delivered nervously. Speaking smart in high-stakes moments means choosing presence over panic, intention over impulse, and clarity over clutter. Speaking smart in high-stakes moments. Smart communicators also understand that pressure is not the enemy. Unprepared pressure is. This is why they rehearse mentally, not to memorize scripts, but to familiarize their nervous system with the situation. They visualize themselves speaking slowly, breathing deeply, and finishing sentences with confidence. This mental rehearsal trains the body to respond with calm instead of chaos. In conflict, smart speakers resist the urge to defend immediately. They listen first. They respond second. A calm response in an emotional moment often carries more authority than any argument. In interviews, smart speakers tailor their answers instead of delivering rehearsed speeches. They listen to the question, identify what is really being asked, and respond with relevance. In presentations, they focus on serving the audience instead of proving themselves. This shift removes self-consciousness and replaces it with purpose. Even mistakes are handled differently. Smart speakers don't panic when they stumble. They pause. They reset. They continue. That pause does not signal weakness. It signals composure. And composure under pressure is one of the strongest markers of intelligence. People may forget your exact words, but they will remember how you made them feel in that moment. If you remained calm, clear, and grounded when it mattered, your voice becomes associated with trust. And trust, more than brilliance, is what opens doors in high-stakes situations. Speaking smart in high-stakes moments. Chapter 10. The Psychology of Persuasion. Speaking smart is not only about being understood, it is also about being influential without being forceful. True persuasion does not push, pressure, or overpower. It guides, it invites, it helps people arrive at conclusions willingly. Most people misunderstand persuasion because they confuse it with manipulation. Manipulation tries to control outcomes by hiding intentions. Smart persuasion does the opposite. It is transparent, ethical, and grounded in respect. When you speak persuasively, you are not trying to win an argument. You are trying to create alignment. And alignment happens when logic, emotion, and trust move together. The human brain rarely makes decisions based on logic alone. We like to believe we are rational, but neuroscience shows that emotion usually leads and logic follows to justify the choice. This is why facts without feeling fall flat, and passion without clarity feels unstable. Smart speakers balance both. They explain clearly, but they also connect emotionally. They don't overwhelm with data. They frame it. They don't tell people what to think. They show them why it matters. Tone plays a massive role here. A calm, grounded tone lowers resistance. A rushed or aggressive tone raises defenses. When people feel pressured, they resist even good ideas. When they feel respected, they open up. Persuasion begins with empathy, not argument. When your listener feels seen and understood, your words enter more easily. That is psychology at work, not charisma or luck. The psychology of persuasion. Another powerful element of persuasion is credibility, and credibility is built long before you speak. People ask themselves silently, "Can I trust this person?" And the answer comes from consistency, honesty, and self-awareness. Smart speakers do not pretend to know everything. They acknowledge limits when appropriate, and that honesty strengthens trust instead of weakening it. Persuasion also works best when people feel involved rather than instructed. This is why questions are more powerful than statements. Asking, "What do you think would happen if we tried this?" invites participation. Participation creates ownership. Ownership creates commitment. Smart speakers guide conversations instead of dominating them. They use examples, stories, and relatable scenarios to make ideas feel real. They highlight benefits without exaggeration and risks without fear-mongering. Timing matters as well. Speaking at the right moment is often more persuasive than speaking at the perfect length. Sometimes silence allows an idea to settle and grow. Sometimes repeating a message calmly over time works better than pushing it once with force. Smart persuasion respects the listener's autonomy. It does not rush decisions. It builds clarity and allows space. When people feel they chose the idea themselves, they defend it more strongly than if it were forced upon them. This is how influence becomes lasting. The psychology of persuasion. At its core, smart persuasion is about service. You are not asking, "How do I get my way?" You are asking, "How do I help this person see value clearly?" When your intention is clean, your words feel different. They carry integrity, and integrity is persuasive. People sense when your goal is mutual benefit instead of personal gain. That sense creates trust, and trust opens minds. This is why some speakers change opinions without raising their voice, while others shout and change nothing. Influence does not come from volume, complexity, or dominance. It comes from clarity, empathy, and timing. When you combine these elements, your words stop sounding like pressure and start sounding like guidance. That guidance feels safe, it feels intelligent, and it feels respectful. Smart persuasion does not demand agreement. It invites reflection. It leaves people thinking instead of defending. And when people think, real change becomes possible. That is the true power behind the psychology of persuasion, not control, but connection that moves people willingly toward insight and action. The psychology of persuasion. Last chapter, the daily habits of smart speakers. Speak with power for life. You have reached the end of this journey, but what matters now is not what you've heard, it's what you practice. Speaking smart is not a performance you turn on for special moments. It is a daily habit shaped quietly over time through awareness, intention, and repetition. The most powerful communicators in the world are not constantly thinking about techniques while they speak. They have trained themselves so deeply that clarity becomes natural. And that training happens in ordinary moments, not on big stages. It happens in daily conversations, casual meetings, voice notes, disagreements, introductions, and small exchanges that seem insignificant but slowly build your reputation. Smart speakers think before they speak, not to overanalyze, but to respect the moment. They pause just long enough to ask themselves, what is the purpose of what I'm about to say, and who is listening? This pause alone changes everything. It prevents rambling. It removes emotional reactivity. It creates alignment between intention and expression. Over time, this habit rewires your mind to speak with precision instead of impulse. Another daily habit is choosing quality over quantity. Smart speakers don't try to fill silence. They don't feel threatened by quiet. They trust that fewer words delivered clearly carry more weight than many words delivered poorly. This mindset shifts your relationship with your own voice. You stop chasing attention and start commanding it naturally. And the more you practice this, the more your confidence stabilizes. Not the loud kind of confidence, but the calm, grounded kind that people trust instinctively. Speaking smart every day means treating your voice like a tool that deserves care. You don't abuse it with clutter. You don't rush it under pressure. You use it intentionally, knowing that every sentence shapes how others experience you and how you experience yourself. Speak with power for life. Another defining habit of smart speakers is lifelong learning, not just of words, but of people. They read regularly, not to sound impressive, but to expand how they think. They listen to great communicators, not to copy them, but to understand rhythm, pacing, and clarity. They stay curious about human behavior, emotions, and perspectives. This curiosity sharpens communication because it deepens understanding. When you understand people better, you speak to them more effectively. Smart speakers also ask more questions than they give answers. They know that asking thoughtful questions is one of the strongest signals of intelligence. A good question shows awareness, humility, and presence. It invites dialogue instead of dominance. It opens space instead of closing it. Over time, this habit transforms relationships. People feel respected, conversations feel meaningful, and your voice becomes associated with insight rather than noise. Reflection is another daily practice that separates average speakers from exceptional ones. After important conversations, smart speakers reflect gently. They ask themselves, did my message land the way I intended? Did I listen well? What could I improve next time? This is not self-criticism. It is self-awareness. And self-awareness is the foundation of growth. Without reflection, habits stay the same. With reflection, habits evolve. Smart speakers are also intentional about aligning their words with their values. They don't say things just to sound clever. They speak in ways that feel honest and respectful to who they are. This alignment creates inner confidence. When your words match your values, you stop doubting yourself after conversations. You don't replay everything in your head wondering if you sounded right. You know you spoke truthfully, and that inner certainty strengthens your voice over time. Speak with power for life. One of the most overlooked habits of smart speakers is practicing in low-pressure moments. Many people wait for important events to use their communication skills, but mastery is built in the small moments. The way you introduce yourself, the way you explain a simple idea, the way you respond when someone disagrees, these moments are training grounds. Every time you choose clarity over clutter, calm over rush, and intention over impulse, you strengthen the skill. And slowly, without forcing it, your voice changes. It becomes steadier. Your tone becomes more controlled. Your pauses become natural. You stop trying to sound smart because you are speaking smart. Another key habit is accepting imperfection without quitting. Even the best communicators stumble. They forget words. They misread moments. They say things they later wish they phrased differently. The difference is they don't let those moments define them. They learn and continue. Smart speaking is not about never making mistakes. It's about recovering with composure. A calm pause after a mistake sounds smarter than pretending it didn't happen. Self-compassion keeps your voice flexible instead of tense. When you allow yourself to be human, your communication stays authentic and sustainable. Smart speakers also protect their mental state. They understand that exhaustion, stress, and emotional overload leak into speech. They prioritize rest, reflection, and emotional regulation because they know communication is not just vocal, it's psychological. A calm mind produces clear speech. A scattered mind produces scattered words. This is why speaking smart is not isolated from how you live. It is connected to how you manage your energy, your emotions, and your focus. Speak with power for life. As this audiobook comes to a close, remember this. Your voice is not just a tool for talking, it is a tool for shaping reality. It shapes how people perceive you, how they respond to you, and how opportunities unfold around you. The world does not need more noise. It needs more clarity. It needs more people who can speak with calm confidence, listen with genuine presence, and express ideas with honesty and intention. Speaking smart is not about impressing others. It is about expressing your best self clearly. One sentence spoken with intention can shift a conversation. One calm response can de-escalate conflict. One thoughtful question can open a door that force never could. And these moments add up. Over time, they build a reputation of someone who is clear, grounded, and trustworthy. You do not need permission to speak this way. You do not need perfection. You only need practice and awareness. Start small. Pause before you speak. Choose words that serve your message. Let silence work for you. Listen deeply, speak honestly, and trust that your voice already has power. When you learn to use it wisely, it doesn't just communicate, it leads, it connects, it transforms, and that is the lifelong impact of speaking smart. Speak with power for life. Finally, as we come to the end of this audiobook, take a moment to breathe and let everything you've heard settle. This was never just about learning how to sound better when you speak. It was about reclaiming your voice, about realizing that the way you communicate shapes how the world responds to you, and more importantly, how you see yourself. Every chapter you listened to was designed to bring you closer to clarity, confidence, and authenticity, not as techniques you perform, but as habits you live. You now understand that speaking smart is not about dominating conversations or impressing people with intelligence. It is about being understood, trusted, and respected. It is about choosing your words with intention, using silence without fear, listening with presence, and speaking from a place that feels true to who you are. Your voice does not need to be louder to be powerful. It needs to be clearer. It needs to be calmer. It needs to be aligned with your values. When you speak that way, people feel it. They may not remember every sentence you say, but they will remember how you made them feel. And that feeling stays longer than words ever could. From this point forward, the real work begins in everyday life, in the conversations that don't feel important, in the moments when no one is watching, in the times when it would be easier to stay silent or rush your words. That is where speaking smart becomes real. Use what you've learned gently. You don't need to change overnight. Just pause a little more. Listen a little deeper. Choose clarity over clutter. Let your voice reflect the intelligence, care, and presence that already exist inside you. Because when you speak with intention, you don't just communicate information. You build trust. You open doors. You create connection. And over time, that connection changes the direction of your life. Remember this as you move forward. Your voice matters. Your perspective matters. And the world needs more people who can speak with honesty, calm confidence, and respect. So take what you've learned, apply it in small ways, and allow your voice to grow stronger with practice. This is not the end of the journey. It's the beginning of a new way of showing up. Speak smart, speak clearly, speak with purpose, and let your voice become a force for understanding, influence, and positive change in every space you enter.